In a world overflowing with distractions, we seek meaning. How do we transform ambition into something deeper, into true fulfillment? I'm Sam Pepin, CEO of Course Educa, and I've spent years helping businesses succeed by connecting their goals to something bigger. On the Meaningful Podcast, we explore not just how to win in business, but how to grow as individuals. Through conversation with thought leaders, innovators, and everyday heroes, we uncover the stories that drive us towards something greater. Whether you're striving for success, seeking purpose, or just looking for the next steps in your journey, this podcast is your guide to navigating the intersection of ambition, growth, and meaning. So please join me and our incredible guests as we redefine what's possible in both business and life. Enjoy. True leadership isn't about perfection. It's about embracing our unique strengths and leveraging them to create a meaningful impact. Welcome to the Meaningful Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pepin, and today we're diving into 3 transformative themes: the power of neurodivergent leadership, building systems that solve chaos, and redefining productivity through joy and efficiency. Our guest today is Eryn Anitavi, the visionary behind Sapphire Partners, a company dedicated to providing executive support for neurodivergent leaders and visionaries. Eryn's journey from embracing her late autism diagnostic to pioneering new frameworks for leadership and energy management is nothing short of inspiring. She's on a mission to help individuals not only optimize their productivity, but also build a life they don't need a vacation from. If you enjoyed this discussion, please let the world know with a like, a small review, or even a quick share. Your support to help more people find meaningful content just like this. Let's begin. Miss Eryn Anitavi, welcome on the Meaningful Podcast. How are you doing?
It's fantastic. Have the tea, have the all of the things. I'm ready to jump in.
All right, fantastic. It's great to have you here. We're both having a professional and personal relationships, and what you're doing is quite enlightening. To kick us off, tell us more about Sapphire Partners.
Yes, indeed. Sapphire, we provide executive support for neurodivergent leaders and visionaries. We also work with other leaders and other entrepreneurs, but I really like my complex creative humans. And so we provide support, we do training, working with other admins, other EAs, everything that is involved in the whole circle of support, administration, all of that.
Beautiful. I'd like to start by diving deeper into kind of like your own path to clarity and strength and this discovering, obviously, neurodivergence. It seemed like you received in 2023, actually, your autism diagnostic as well. And I was really wondering how you felt at that moment. How did that reshape and reframe kind of like your perspective on lives and perhaps what leadership is?
Changed everything. Everything. Late diagnosis, autism, late diagnosis. I mean, anything in the neurodivergent arena, when it pops up and you're later on in your life and it's like, okay, wait a second, what? Oh, you mean there's a reason that all of those things have been hard? Oh, okay, right. When the world is, when it's a minefield and you're just not sure what's going to break or what's going to go wrong or what's going to be terrifying outside, it impacts the way that you approach everything. And I'm one of those people who pushes through the hard things. I just, if it's hard, now stoicism and all of that. If it's an obstacle, I'm going to take it. I'm going to be like, all right, I can do this. So I've spent most of my life pushing through these difficult things. And the idea is it'll be easy. It'll get easier. The more I do it, it'll get easier. It's fine. It's fine. And with neurological conditions, like things in neurodiversity, you can push and push and push, and you're just not going to get easier. It's, let's say if we take a little rabbit trail into Pirate with a wooden leg. He wants to run a marathon. Pirate is all about this marathon. He got a wooden leg. He's like, I'm going to run this marathon. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to win. Yes. And So on the starting line, everybody's around him, and he's like, all right, let's go. The bell goes off, and he's got this wooden leg, and he's like, I can do it. I'm going. But it's a problem. He doesn't know he has a wooden leg. So he's just pushing and pushing it. Man, that is the hardest race. And he's like, all right, you know what? It's fine. Next time, it's going to be better. This is going to be fantastic. I'm going to win next time. I'm going to practice. I'm going to keep going, keep pushing. Next marathon, he's like all over it, running that marathon with a wooden leg, years. And then one day, someone's like, hey, you know you have a wooden leg, right? And he's, what? What do you mean I have a wooden leg? Are you kidding me? No. Just like everybody else. That's ridiculous. Why would you say something like that? And he starts doing the research and actually looking, and he's like, oh my God, I actually do have a wooden leg. Wow. Okay. Maybe I should change my approach for how I'm running this marathon. Maybe I think about that a little differently. Oh, maybe I could, if I go and talk to somebody who can do prosthetics, what if I, start looking into some different setups, maybe, some different races, some different things that might make this a little easier. And all of a sudden now he's in his game, right? Now all of a sudden the wooden leg is no longer a mysterious disability that has no explanation for why these marathons are so hard, and he can never win them no matter how hard he tries. So for me, that was kind of the scenario is, hey, you have a wooden leg. Probably should look.
Right. No, absolutely. When you obviously receive, like you call it, a late diagnostic, when you think of yourself growing up, and even obviously prior to receiving the diagnostic, did you always had this? You call it a mysterious disability. Did you always had this feeling that there was something about yourself that was quote unquote different? And they're beautiful fashions, but was that always something on your mind and following through basically your thoughts whenever you were doing anything basically socially or encompassing with other people?
Yes, all of that is present. And for me, it's like, okay, no, we're going to do it. And always knew that there was something different, right? Always thinking in different ways and connecting different things, and relationships that develop in strange, and conditions and situations and conversations, right? I always like to jump in, small talk has never been a thing, right? It's not just like, can we just not ever? And so when you get into situations and people want to small talk, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? And then networking and connecting, and those 5-minute interactions at a networking event where all of a sudden my interactions are 20 minutes and I have no idea that the other person wants to leave. Just can't tell, can't see it. And then you wonder, it's like, oh, well, how come nobody follows up? How come they are like, oh, they have all these wonderful things. Oh, you're fantastic. You're amazing. And then they just disappear. You never hear from them again. And the subtext that happens in the world at large, I don't know what other people call it subtext. It's all the things that happen between the lines, all the things that happen, that people say certain words, but they mean something else. And within autism, I can't see that. And so that creates a very interesting dynamic in social situations that rely on being able to interpret subtext. And understanding now what that is, right? I understand this wooden leg. I understand what it looks like. And those tools that I now have position me for a better chance at succeeding, right? Accommodation, right? Accommodation is a big, scary word. And people are like, oh, we don't want accommodation. It's too expensive. It's too complicated. It's too, whatever. Accommodation could be as simple as, for me, if I'm at a networking event I am now conscious of putting myself against a window or a wall, or wherever we are in the room, because if somebody is talking to me and I am in front of them and they are in front of a wall, they have no way of telling me that they want to leave that conversation. So, right, that 5-minute interaction, if they are there, their subtext, the social cues, the social stuff, I can't see that they want to leave after 5 minutes to go talk to other people, right? So I'll hold them there and it'll be like a hostage situation, basically. And, but if I flip that, I'm up against the wall, I can see and I can watch shoulder cues and I can watch head cues, and they make eye contact with somebody else who's passing, or they turn their shoulder ever so slightly, tells me that they're ready to go. So I've studied the language, right, that happens. I'm like, oh, that's what that means. Okay. So if I'm there, then they can turn slightly, and I'm like, you know what, it's fantastic talking to you. Let's, reconnect, business cards, and I'll find you on LinkedIn, like all of that. And now these interactions are way better. It's that accommodation is just me changing my positioning in the room.
Yeah. No, and that's very powerful. I remember what Verna Myers had to say, which is diversity is being invited to the party, but being asked to dance is inclusion. And it's very interesting because, like you said, there's a difference between just being in a networking events and finding yourself in these weird positions where maybe it doesn't connect very well, it doesn't come through the way you want it to basically come through. I was wondering as well, we live in a world where neurodivergency and all these topics, mental health and so on, are talked about at length. I was wondering, was there ever a moment, basically within your professional and personal relationships, where you were invited to that? People were actually adopting a new style themselves because they were seeing that you were, again, I use this word different in an empowering fashions, but it's basically they recognize that there's something different about you, and therefore perhaps recognize that they should also act in a way in which is aligned with you. Were you able to see that people were willing to do such things and proactive towards it, or how was that sentiment coming through on the person you were talking with?
I think neurodiversity is a language in of itself, and when we're speaking to new people or existing people, or however, right, the networks and colleagues and professional and personal and all of those, there is a certain dynamic. And when you're in that vibe or you're in that conversation path, there is a language that goes with that, like the neurodiverse tendency to skip small talk, right? I can be a minute into a conversation with someone I've never talked to before, and we are talking about our personal histories, and I mean, we just like, it's like, oh man, we're just going straight for it. And when you speak the same language as someone else, even though you're both speaking English or whatever language you're speaking, it may not be the same. So if I get into somebody and they are engaging in the social cues and the social small talk, I'm going to miss that. And the conversation is going to be a little weird. My accent is different. And I may not understand their accent, and they may not understand mine. And so we get some words wrong, and it just feels a little bit different. But when you find people who speak the same way, there's a flow that happens there. And so we find each other. The neurodiverse community tends to connect in whatever facet it exists in, right? And there's broad variety of humans that go along with that. So in leadership and business and the professional world that I like to hang out in, I'm very open about neurodiversity. I think that sharing our weaknesses and sharing our struggles is something that connects us. It's not, there's no benefit to anyone to for things to be okay and awesome all the time, right? There's no connection there. Yeah. And so having a little vulnerability makes it okay. So if I'm the first one in the room and I'm like, hey, I'm autistic, I'm going to be a little weird. Okay. Right. It's like everybody, oh, hey, I'm actually ADHD, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I'm like, awesome. Let's talk, people.
Nice. And I love that. The openness is something I think help you a lot, specifically with Sapphire Partners. Something that you specialize on, obviously, is creating systems that solve chaos, which is, I think you did a lot of that internal work before you were able to express it in the external work and intangible outcomes, obviously, for your company. But truly, when you're thinking about relieving overwhelm in leaders specifically, I'd like if we can dive into some of the tactical approach that you have in building systems and in ways in which we can enhance productivity, obviously reduce stress, and overall just cultivate joy, right? Smiling is quite important within this process. What is your philosophy on automation and overall this utilizations of a system that can solve chaos within businesses?
I was talking with somebody recently, and they posed the question of, does AI and automation level the playing field for humanity? Truly, because I think yes. Like for you, when you've used AI or automation or structures, is it in a way an accommodation for something that you don't naturally have or naturally able to do? And in that, I think that the systems and the structures that we are able to create are going to allow people to build things that they wouldn't have been able to build before. For me, I love Seattle. I think this is a fantastic city. Before Google Maps existed, I would not have been able to live in a city because getting around, and I'm directionally challenged. Have been forever, and didn't really make the associations. Just people are like, oh well, what direction does the sun rise? What direction does that? That's what north, south, east, west. Like it's not that hard. I'm like, yeah, but it actually is. So getting around in a city, whether I'm on a bus or whether I'm driving, is incredibly difficult. And when Google Maps arrived on the scene, all of a sudden now I'm able to find my way around. Now I can travel internationally. Now I can travel anywhere, and I can find where I'm going, and I can make things happen. So it expanded my personal horizons into, sure, now I can actually go places and get around. So that one little simple thing changed everything. It became an accommodation. And I think with AI and automation and systems for leaders, the Sapphire as a whole has provided executive support. We're going on a little over 6.5 years. I didn't know I was built for neurodiversity. I mean, it's relatively new. I just knew that I love the stories of these creators and creative individuals, and the way that they approach their businesses and their world and their lives is something that I think is exquisite. And the other thing that I saw often is how often life is harder for the leaders. One of my other quotes, leadership doesn't get easier, it just gets more public. I coined that one after Sam Altman got booted from ChatGPT. Did you follow that story at all?
OpenAI, yes, I did, absolutely, and it was quite interesting. I love that quote. That And because you're completely right, to a point where leaderships, specifically at the highest level with OpenAI, obviously, for example, with Sam Altman, you get to a point where you have all these achievements, one of the fastest growing company in the history of mankind, and you're still to a point where you have the same kerfuffles, right? But now the whole world knows about them. And that's the difference. It's not just your team, not just your local city, not just even your state or county. It's now worldwide, and that comes with a bunch of pressure and a bunch of accumulated stress, right? And so that's why the system is so important to build. So that way, basically, you can have something that supports you within these times where it's a little bit more dense. Maybe the output needs to be basically a bit faster because of whatever deadlines. So that's why I'm so intrigued, and I find the work of Sapphire so effective and so beautiful, is because that's in a world that grows so fast, it is so necessary. Do you see that as continuing to be as necessary? By the way, with everything that we're seeing change, and the added basically process of even AI agents, for example, and other things like that might be adding even more complexity to the outreach systems and the outputs overall.
Oh man! Oh, there's so many fun things in there. Oh, you're killing me. Which candy jar do I want to dig into? Yes to all of that. The systems and AI and structures and the growth that is happening inside of all of that it absolutely is changing the world. And the creative people that are building the things that don't exist, when you are neurodivergent, or when just leadership, because it's hard, and the bigger you are, yes, those problems are the same. It is the staffing and organization and structure. It doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or you have 10 employees or you have 1,000 or 100,000, right? Those problems are all still there. The weight is still there. And when AI and automation steps in and things happen faster, like I feel like I'm watching the invention of the internet all over again. But it took years for that to happen. And we're months, right? It is weeks, days. It's so fast. And it's going to remove industries. And the administrative field is in the path of this Category 5 hurricane. The administrative field, the legal field, there's skipping my head at the moment, but there are a handful of industries that are right in the middle of this path. And if adaptation doesn't happen as quickly as the industry is shifting, then the ones who can pivot faster are going to rise faster, right? You can't put your head in the sand and be like, oh, this isn't coming, because it is coming. And for Sapphire and for administration, within the neurodivergent community, within leadership, when you're creating something new, when you're creating something that doesn't exist, there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of details that have to be organized. And it's only going to be a matter of time before you can't do all of it. So you're going to look for relief. You're going to look for solutions, or not. Or your idea is going to get stuck in the garage. It's going to get stuck in Google Drive. It's going to never do anything, right? And when I look at those, the difference between the ones who make it and the ones who don't is support and a network. Right? When you are doing anything, you have to have the people around you. And even for your story, right? You have to have that person who believes in you. have to. And if it's someone in your company or it's a personal whatever that looks like, you have to have the person who believes in you. And in a professional sense, that person can be your executive assistant. Doesn't even have to be a full-time role, right? But when you start to get overwhelmed, you're like, oh my God, I can't. And you look to solutions, the solutions tend to be the first stop tends to be virtual assistants, tends to be the most inexpensive form, all of the hundreds of ads. Oh, this is super cheap. This is $2 an hour, $5 an hour, like all of that stuff. Yes. If you know step A, step B, step C. But if you're in the middle of raising a company, you don't know that. You don't know what step A, step B, step C looks like. You're still building it. And when someone in all genuineness comes to you and says, how can I help you? That can put a rock in your stomach. You're like, my God, I know I need help, but I can't even organize myself right now. I don't even know how to organize another person. What do I need help with? Shoot. Okay. List of tasks, list of things. I got to keep this person busy. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so much work. How do I train? Well, I'm the only one who knows how to do. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe they could help me. Well, no, because I need to do those things. Well, but maybe, no, because I need to, no, because I need to do that too. And all of a sudden now, this isn't helpful. All of a sudden now you're more stressed out and it doesn't work. With the way that we approach executive support and administration, the strategy comes first. So that the approach is based on what you're working on. I see the priorities are here and here and here. So I'm going to work on this and this and this. Do you have anything to change? Do you want to change that? Do you want to adjust that approach? No, that sounds great. And that is where 10 hours a week can make or break the success of a company. And it shifted for me into a humanitarian cause at that moment when I realized that the success of a company could be dependent on an executive assistant who is your cheerleader, who is that person who believes in you when you are fighting uphill and it doesn't get easier. And that's a beautiful thing. And whether Sapphire provides that executive support or I just am very loud that this is important and I train other EAs and I train other administrative people, this is part of that entire world. And AI and automation makes that easier. It makes it faster. It shortens the learning curve. It shortens the duration of the struggle. You have to have it.
Yes. No, you do. And I actually, that's a perfect segue to someone I was on to talk about. You just mentioned humanity, and that is at the core of your belief is authenticity. It's humanity. It's this understanding in which even if professional work can be grueling, or at least it seems like it, we can always integrate empathy, humor, resilience, and into leaderships, and to ultimately build connections that drive meaningful changes. That's always the bottom line is how can we make sure that we're not only more effective, more efficient, but also that we enjoy the process along the way, which is something that definitely is not talked enough about. When you're thinking about how does that shape the way Sapphire operates and your services, tell me more about how big of a difference that is compared to maybe the industry average, where you were talking about some type of ads you're seeing at $2 an hour. Not shaming any of that. There's a place for it. But just tell me more about how much deeper you get with an understanding of EQ in general.
When you love what you do, there is an element of motivation that goes along with that. In neurodivergency, we chase the shiny objects. right? Like, oh, that looks like fun. Maybe get 80% the way through, and then you abandon it. Joy is incredibly important, and efficiency and productivity is incredibly important. But I see two camps more often than not. I see the camp that is very focused on productivity and efficiency. Go, 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 make this happen, drive hard, make all of this happen, right? And they all hang out over there. And then you have the group who is focused on wellness and holistic and joy and very ambiguous feeling stuff, right? And what if you want both? What if I want that? What if I want to be happy, but I also want productivity? It is really hard to find the two. It's very, very rare to find both of those together. And so within executive support, I'm like, I want you to be happy. We call it working in your brilliance, which is your proficiency and your joy. And when I work with a leader who is very productivity and efficiency based, the concept of joy is that's less important. And when I work with a leader who is focused on wellness and holistic care and happiness, and you introduce the concept of efficiency and productivity, they're like, no, that's less important. No, you have to have both of those things. So finding that center is part of the way that we tackle strategy, part of the way that we tackle your business development is finding where you are happy, because that's necessary. The shiny object, the neurodivergency. Build a life you don't need a vacation from. And internally, for my team and for the way that I'm raising Sapphire, quotes, right? Love them. You cannot do for your executive what you don't do for yourself. If my team or any executive assistant, the field of executive support, the personality that tends to gravitate towards that field, they tend to be more passive, shadow players, right? They like the back, like they don't want to be front stage. Will burn themselves to the ground in service of the executives that they're working with. And they will put all of their personal boundaries on the line. They will just phone rings when they're there, right? And within the virtual assistant, the offshore community, the tendency is there for that person to forget that they're human, and they have needs and they have feelings and they have opinions, because those things are not encouraged in a lot of the companies that operate. I have some very strong opinions on a lot of that. And when you are working with a leader, if you are not taking care of yourself, if you are not paying attention to your boundaries, if you're not doing that for you, how on earth are you going to help that executive do that for themselves? If you are not finding joy in your work, how are you going to help your executive find joy in their work? So you have to figure it out in here, to be the most effective, incredible executive assistant that person has ever had. You have to tap into that. And that's part of the mission, is helping both executive assistant and leader. And when you get that right, it's beautiful.
Great. One thing that I love, and I think it was Albert Einstein, if I'm not mistaken, it's the mind that opens to a new idea never returned to its original size, right? which is very important to understand, specifically because one thing that always intrigued me, and not only from yourself and from our past conversation, everything that we do together, but it's the power of neurodivergency, and especially on a leadership settings. Obviously, you work with a lot of neurodivergent executive and leaders yourself. I I'd love to if you can tell us how does that unique contributions is able to problem solving, and basically that different brain structure is able to just redefine traditional leadership paradigm, and just how important for that to involve within the leadership space.
Well, if you think about yourself, the things that you've created and the people in your circle and the other leaders that you've interviewed and the other amazing episodes that you've had, the way that each of these individuals view the world is incredibly unique, right? And the things that you're building are incredibly unique. And okay, sure, marketing is a field. It is an industry. Executive support is a field. It is law and virtual support, right? All of these are umbrella industries. But the way that they are done is incredibly different. And when you are a customer or a client, it's funny because we almost separate ourselves from the client and the seller. And when I'm reading articles and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, when you write an email, it has to be this way, or, well, cold email only gets, 1% open rate, or all of these things, or social media or blog posts, or all of this. And we spend so much time analyzing this approach to sales, when really the answer is right in front of us, because all you have to do is ask yourself, well, what kind of emails do I delete? What kind of emails do I, when I see an article, what makes me stop? Listening to a podcast, what makes me think, no, that's okay, I don't want to hear that one. When I'm on social media watching short form videos and I only stay 2 seconds, because that's the say, people stay 2 seconds, right? And I stay 2 seconds. Why? And if you just personalize that, I'm like, well, why did I delete that email? Well, because it had this and this and this. Okay, cool. So don't do that when you do your emails. I don't know if that answered the question. I'm kind of like, somewhere else.
Absolutely, it does. It does, because what we found neurobiologically is all actions obviously are driven by meaning, and therefore your brain structure is what supports for what's meaningful for you, and therefore the action that you have, the behaviors, and therefore the lifestyle you will live. And that's all intertwined within the same linear, and it's in a very quite actually linear fashions when you take a deeper look into it. And I was always quite delight by how observative neurodivergent people tends to be. I have a lot of friends that are neurodivergent, and one thing that I absolutely adore is a little bit what you were touching on, is that pause of saying, well, why do I do such things? How can I my work reflect what I love and not reflect what I don't like, right? And that's actually this critical thinking is something that I think we're losing more and more with unfortunately the overutilization of technology. And it's something that is so crucial in human beings to actually pause, step away, and ask yourself these questions so that you remain human. You're human because you have a critical mind and you have a frontal lobe that allows you to have unique thoughts and creative, basically, freedoms. We ought to never disengage from that for the sake of effectiveness and productivity. Like you said, both of these things can be true at the same time. It's not one or the other. So that's very, very, very powerful. And yeah, please.
I'm curious too, because I think something very special happened with the introduction of AI that I don't think really anybody paid attention to. And that was, and is still, because we're in the middle of it, the achievement of perfection. humanity, up until this moment, we have been in pursuit of perfection. Magazine covers, Photoshop, videos, makeup, clothing, persona, language, all of these things has been in the pursuit of perfection. And what I saw, and am still seeing, is the achievement of perfection has now swung the pendulum in the other direction, where people are signing their emails. This has not been created by AI. This, where people are intentionally putting typos, like intentionally, so that when you're reading it, you're like, oh, that was written by a human. Where we are, now that we can run our videos through filters and achieve perfection, we're like, guess what? I'm not using any filters. Guess what? This is actually me. And the pendulum has swung to imperfection as the verification and proof that I am now human. And I think we're just now scratching the surface of that. Like I've always loved Victorian writing and very eloquent etiquette. You know, all of that stuff has been the social cues and stuff that goes with autism. And I've always used words and adjectives and a very formal style of writing. And a little part of me is very sad because I write something naturally and it comes across as AI. Like, no, it's not. I actually did write it. And I use the adjectives and I use all of this like, you know, certain style that when you run it through an AI filter, it like is, oh, this is 90% AI. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, because you learn through patterns recognition, right? You learn through understanding, basically, and that's actually a very interesting point that I like to rebound on. Is this understanding of perfection? And you're completely correct. No matter if it's in our looks, in the way in our health, in sleep, whatever it is, we always chase this novelty of perfections. But now, and I love the kind of like the philosophical background of that questioning, because if everything's special, nothing is, right? If we live in a world where everything you see is flawless writing, everything you see is nothing but basically the greatest illustrations with the clearest colors and the greatest vibrance, well, that loses its novelty. That loses flavor because now it's no longer special. Think about any basically anything from a market perspectives, where the less it is rare, obviously the less it is valuable, and vice versa. So there's something to say about the reemergence, let's say, of being very, very upfront and very, very open about, actually, no, I'm not perfect. And guess what? That's actually what makes me valuable and special, and why I value myself and others. And don't you think that there's not only beauty there, but also such incredible and meaningful continuity within this acceptations of that concept?
Yeah, it's exquisite because it's allowing a new form of connection, right? Where we are no longer connecting. Well, I mean, it still is, right? This is still, we're in the middle of all of this. So there's still the desire for perfection. But it is making vulnerability more in fashion. Yeah. And in the writing, when I have to get rid of some of my flowery adjectives, I'm like, oh, I was going through with my youngest, who like loves, you know, all the AI. Like we like to build stuff together, and he was giving me the list of words that are like AI buzzwords, because we were going through and I'm writing a couple of prompts, and I'm like, all right, I know we need to not use a bunch of words, and like, what are the most common AI buzzwords? And so he was helping me do that. We're writing all of these words out that are shown. I'm like, oh, but I love that word. Like, really? Things like outstanding or excellence
Right.
or
Innovative.
innovative, all of these things. But those are such fun words. Like, oh, I
Oh,
can't
they
use them.
are. They are. And by the way, obviously you're a parent as well. How many children do you have?
I have four.
Yeah, four children, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
20,
Uh,
22, 20, 18, and 16.
Oh wow, back to back to back to back. Okay, that's great. No, I love that. I love that. It's have you seen? And that's always something that I was wondering. Is neurodivergent something that you biologically inherit? And is that basically from parent to parents and down the tree of life perhaps? Or tell me more about if you see some of the same divergency and differences with your children's as a whole.
I was having a really interesting conversation just yesterday, actually, on the concept of neurodivergence or neurospicy is another one of the words. Like, what version of the spice cabinet are you? There's like so many different spices out there that society as a whole, the time and place and culture that you live in has an impact on what is considered divergent versus norm. And what exists in a certain century or what is favorable in a certain century may not be favorable in another. And what is favorable becomes the typical, becomes the neurotypical. And what is unfavorable becomes the divergent. And if you look at, we'll pick on autism for a second. If you look at, say, the years 1300 through 1800, right? 500-ish years ago. My personal theory is, a lot of folks are like, oh, autism is, so much more prevalent now than it's ever been before. And why, diagnoses are all, up and, oh my gosh, like, is it in the water? Is it contagious? It's like, whatever. 500 years ago, autistic women were probably very favorable marriage partners. You're quiet, you're routine based, you like to be at home, you like to run a family, you're very structured. Social cues are perfect, right? You have a very distinct way of engaging, and that probably made you a fantastic, marriage partner. And autism in men, same, right? You are the university student. You are well educated. You are distinguished. You are very routine based. You are very methodical. You are, like all of these things when you look at the opportunities that were available to both parties. And ADHD in men 500 years ago, probably also pretty favorable. You see the creators, the inventors, Da Vinci, Einstein, all of the people who were making things that didn't exist, bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing. Not so marriageable, but definitely creating things, right? PhD in women, that'll put you in the asylum. It's not gonna happen. Like you're gonna be way too wild. You're gonna be hysterical. You're gonna be too interested in books and knowledge, and those kinds of things just not gonna happen. So when you look at the genetic flow of that, what has happened in the last 100 years that all of a sudden, oh my gosh, autism diagnoses are up and all of these women have undiagnosed. For every 8 boys who are diagnosed as autistic, only 1 girl is. Like, these statistics are wild. And the change in the last 100 years, or not even the last 100 years, in the last 60 years, social cues, gone. What social cues? So, yeah, we stand out a little more. We're a little more confused. than we were before. As you know, our grandmothers, fine. The 1950s household, right? Oh my gosh, so autistic. All of them. Home by this and making this happen and this structure and that routine and all of the etiquette that existed and all of the social, like, you are here and this is how you do the things. So all of our grandmothers are all autistic women, and now the daughters and the sons of all of 600 years of autism, and then you pull away the social rug and you're like, cool, everybody just go do what you want and be who you are. The autistic community is going to be like, oh my God, what? So we stand out more.
Interesting.
So
you think those diagnostics are more a result of the openness and the activeness in perhaps seeking those as diagnostic instead of a drastic change of, for example, what's in the water or it's in vaccines or whatever those are. You're less prone to believe that that made any drastic shift, right?
I think it is genetic. I mean, I'm not educated in that level of neuroscience and genetics. I like to talk to people who are, but those things are genetic, and then if you look at like hunter-gatherer, right? People who were ADHD, like fantastic hunters, right? They're the ones who survived because they're paying attention to everything. They're hearing everything. They're seeing everything. So it really depends on where you are and what society you live in that makes it what is neurotypical, what is neurodivergent. And now we're in an age of innovation and creation and building and small business and making things that don't exist. And what does that look like? Well, that's the tech community, highly neurodivergent. You have people who are I mean, yeah.
It's also interesting how we quantify these things in good or bad, right? Like you were saying, within the evolution of society, within our evolution of our understanding of what's necessary or what even is success, period, which a lot of people even have difficulties to do, to even have a remotely of a definition, even these days. Those things obviously shape the narrative a lot because, like you said, these days, to be a very successful entrepreneur, specifically in this world, you need to be so astute towards so many things that if you're not at least a little bit ADHD or a little bit basically more on the I suppose intellectual side, the likelihood of you being outpaced is quite significant. So we're seeing perhaps a reemergence of those being qualities instead of, for example, downsides, and that's always been very interesting to see that type of evolutions. One thing that is very interesting with some of the things that you're part of is, and something that we utilize actually at Core Centrica ourselves, is your predictive energy management model, and kind of like redefining leadership strategy through it. I think it is absolutely brilliant. I'd love for you to obviously dive deeper into this model and just this understanding of what it is to have a modern model to make goal settings and to increase focus and productivity. Just kind of like unfold this process, this quadrants perhaps for our audience, please.
Oh, so fun, so much fun. Are you familiar with the term like spoons in the neurodivergent arena? There's I think it came out early 2000s ish. This concept of spoons within neurodivergency, like how many spoons do you have for a day, and how much can you hold and how much can you give? And when you run out of spoons, you're out. Like you're out of energy, you're out of the things, and like you just can basically no longer human. And this I just learned about it relatively recently, and when I dug in, I was like, oh, okay, that's very interesting. It's energy, and everything that we do requires energy, but not all energy is the same. You have mental, you have physical, you have emotional, you have core value. There's different energy pillars, essentially. And there have been multiple authors and books, and I've certainly got my favorites within the energy concepts. And if what you are doing requires a certain kind of energy, we have calories for food. Could we potentially have calories for energy? Could we have points for energy? And in leadership, when you get to the end of the day and you're just like, oh, I'm drained. Or you get to Friday and you get a migraine. Or you burn and burn and burn and burn, and all of a sudden now you're just like, wait a second, what day is it? I don't even know, right? And this happens within neurodivergency, but it also happens, every human out there burns energy. If we're not paying attention to the kind of energy that we're burning, and we're not paying attention to the recovery, when I created the Clarity Matrix, it was originally a goal strategy. And this framework measures your goals, your strategies, your business plan, your personal development, your team development. Like this, one of the things with the Matrix, it's simple enough for a napkin, powerful enough to actually change your life. I've drawn it on a napkin. I've been at coffee shops. I've drawn my Clarity Matrix on a napkin, and I'm like, here, this is how it works. Like, there you go. And what you're measuring is, when we were talking about earlier, the bridge between productivity and joy. When you are working in your brilliance, which is one of the quadrants in the Matrix, you have found the center of proficiency and joy. But it's not enough to just have the activities and the structure and the strategic plan within brilliance. You also have to measure energy, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, or core value. And what you're doing in a day, the activity that you're doing, has to match the recovery that you are planning. So if I'm doing this podcast with you, this is mental and emotional energy. If I'm not planning for emotional and mental recovery, then the rest of my day is not going to be as awesome as it could be. And if you're prone to migraines, or you're prone to health issues, or you are prone to any of the number of things that happen within our brains in neurodivergency, this is, you have burnout, you have compromised productivity, you have all of these things that just don't work. So what I'm creating, and I haven't created it yet, it's still got gaps and things that I am needing to solve. But what I am creating is the concept of predictive energy management using the Clarity Matrix as a framework. Because if I look ahead to next week and I say, oh, cool, I have this meeting and I have that activity and I have that due date and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Oh, wait a second. I have 8 points of mental energy, 3 points of physical energy, 6 points of emotional energy. Oh, wait a second. My personal level, I only have 18 points I only have 18 spoons. But I have 6 spoons of emotional, and I have like 10 spoons of mental. Like I can work a lot harder. I can do a lot. I have more points in mental energy than I do in emotional energy. But man, next Wednesday is going to be a really emotional. Like all the things that I've got, those are high on my emotional points. Wow, I probably should schedule 2 hours for lunch so that I can do some recovery there. And if I get this algorithm built and I have an app, whether we use biofeedback or Apple Watches or existing, however you're plugging your data into it, if I have an app that takes in all of your input what your energy points are, what you need, what your levels are in all 4 of those categories or multiple categories, however we track it. We can now send alerts. Cool, next Wednesday, you are going to be in the red in your mental energy. You are going to be, based on the algorithm that we've pulled and the metrics that we've had, you are high likelihood for a migraine over the weekend, because you get migraines when you spend 2 days in the red zone in mental energy. And if we apply that to leadership, and you apply that to executive support, and you have a predictive model, this is going to change millions of lives. I have to build it because I'm close.
Yeah, exactly. And the clarity matrix is so beautiful, and it's something that I highly recommend our audience to seek more details towards. It's a great way to kind of like an addition to some of your project management tools you're using, because it allows you to have, well, clarity perhaps due to its name. That's pretty straightforward, but also very much an effectiveness in understanding where those hiccups and those gaps can be filled. And that's a lot of what basically obviously executive management is how can I support this leader, this person that is ambitious, trying to build upon this great company in a way in which synergize with their personality, with their own sets of points, right? Think about in video games, for example, when you're building a character, well, some characters are super strong, but they have no health, or they lack stamina, whatever those are. And that's a little bit the same thing in lives. We tend to believe specifically as, and I put myself in this category as kind of like the ambitious visionaries of this world. We tend to believe that we just have unlimited fuel, right? We can just, no, we'll do more. We'll do more. No worries. I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's an interesting concept within that, because that urgency of doing great things is fantastic, and there's some qualities within that, but how you manage it so you don't burn out, but also, just like I said, don't have a migraine over the weekend, or your personal relationship are suffering because now it's overwhelmingly taking over your lives, is so important. And I think that's perfectly tying me into sort of where I wanted this conversation to conclude. You said your tagline prior to this conversation, but it's definitely worth diving very deep into it. Building lives and companies you don't need a vacation from, which is beautiful, which is absolutely brilliant. Some of obviously your objective in creative, meaningful lives is surrounding within this concept of joy and connection, and also sustainability. This understanding that what we're doing now will contribute to tomorrow, and hopefully to next week, next month, next year, next decades, perhaps, and in a way that is very vibrantly authentic. That's how I would describe it, which I really love. I'd really like if you can tell us more philosophically and also practically for all business owners that are watching, which are plenties. How does that model unfold? What it means for you specifically, but how can one take over these concepts and create that meaningful life that they don't need a vacation from themselves?
When some of the philosophies out there are, preparing for retirement, or building your plans. One of the things, another quote, the 5-year plan that's still 5 years away in 5 years. and in the world of leadership, we create big, incredible things. The visionaries, the leaders, the companies, right? All of the long-term game. And when you're looking at the long-term game and you are hyper-fixated, or you are chasing shiny objects, you're not even thinking about retire. You're not thinking about it. Like, you have the big vision, but you're not thinking about it. And the idea of behind building a life you don't need a vacation from is, how do you feel on Sunday night? How do you feel on Friday? How do you feel on Monday? If you're like, my God, I need a vacation. Like, that's a cue right there. Wait a second. Why do you need a vacation? Why do you feel that? And when you dig into energy and you dig into productivity and leadership, if you build that life, it's not that one of those other, what is the other quote? If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Like, okay, sure. But it is work because leadership never gets easier. um, with your staff, are they building lives that they don't need a vacation from? Because on Friday or on Sunday or on Monday, if your staff are thinking, my God, I need a vacation, you probably have turnover. Turnover is expensive. Can't run a company with turnover. And if you are not aware of that, or as a manager or as a director or a leader or however, wherever you are, or if you're just, one of the colleagues and you're one of the people and you're just like, wow, I need a vacation. This is not sustainable in this world that we are building. And if you have the clarity and you have the understanding of working in brilliance, finding the intersection between proficiency and joy, then you now have empowerment, you now have development, you now have hope, you now have teams and structure that will carry you forward. And companies who view their people as human capital, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. And finding that, we have to find that. And I don't have the answer for it yet. I am not yet. But I know that our teams have to. With Sapphire, we don't have turnover. Our folks, they don't always stay forever, but the reasons that people don't stay or the reasons that they do stay, these are bigger than what is happening in the day to day. Like, when people on my team choose to stay with Sapphire, it is for a far deeper reason that is linked to their own personal fulfillment, empowerment, self-care, building lives that they don't need a vacation from. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I was actually just telling my team yesterday, I'm like, I do a lot of talking about this. And if at any point that becomes not true, where I become a hypocrite, where I'm like, yeah, cool, my team is building a life they don't need a vacation from. I was like, at any point that is no longer true, you have to tell me, right? Like, don't let me promote that if that is not actually the case. Within the Clarity Matrix, we track time for team. Everybody on the team tracks their time, and we log the time based on the Clarity Matrix. Where are you? Are you in brilliance? Are you in shiny objects? Are you in monotone? Are you in shattered, which are the different categories? And brilliance and shiny objects are the two desirable ones. You're learning new things, you're happy, you're working in proficiency, all of that. So everybody tags their work. And when I pull reports, I get to see how much work we're doing is in the categories that drain people versus in brilliance. And 95% of the work that the Sapphire team does is categorized in brilliance and shiny objects. Only 5% of the work that we do is not part of joy and optimize, because, sometimes life happens and you just got to buckle down and do the thing. But as a leader, if I see that someone on my team is logging time that is not in their optimized, then it's my job to investigate that. What's going on there? Why aren't you happy? Why are you working on something that you don't feel proficient or happy in? Because someone else on the team does. So you should probably not do that, right? And then if they choose to not tag that, or they choose to misreport, right, that's no longer on me, because if I've got the systems, right, you got to tell me if you don't like something, subtext, right? I can't read it. If somebody on my team is like, yeah, I love that, I'm not going to read it if you don't love it. Those kinds of structures need to be mainstream. They have to.
Beautiful. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. Miss Eryn Anitavi, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Meaningful Podcast. Thank you so much for your times, insights, and incredible wisdom. I would love if you could share some of your last thoughts with our audience, please.
Well, I mean, I've said most of the things. Well, no, I mean, I have a whole book of things. That's why I need a stage. Yeah, that'll probably be the last. Is next year, my plans are to be louder. Leadership's not going to get easier, so I'm going for the loud. I want to talk to as many people as I can possibly talk to, because this is something that needs to be promoted. Staff need to hear it. Leaders need to hear it. Neurodivergent people need to hear it. We need to build this world in a way that is empowering, that people don't need to take vacations, that people feel that they are contributing to something greater. And if I have, I have plenty to say on it. I want to be louder, and I want to talk to more people, and I want to do more workshops, and I want to get to more teams. And, Sapphire, yes, we provide executive support. We do that, but I want to train. I want to train entire teams of admins. I want to bring everybody into this concept and this philosophy of working in brilliance and empowering neurodivergency. Because if we do that, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be beautiful. And that, I may not, it may take a generation, but my goodness gracious, I want to be part of that.
Thank you for spending your time with us today on the Meaningful Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who could benefit from it. And always remember, your story matters. Make it meaningful. We hope to see you next time.